The words hung in the cold, damp air, like poison gas. I looked down at the mud. There, soaking up the rain and the dirt of the Newport estate I'd called home for 21 years, was a crumpled $50 bill. My mother, Andrea, stood on the porch, her designer heels safely dry, her face a mask of perfect, icy disdain. She didn't look sad. She didn't look angry. She looked bored, like she was taking out the trash and it was taking too long. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I bent down, my fingers brushing the wet earth, and picked up the bill. It felt greasy in my hand. I looked up at the mansion one last time. The lights were warm inside, but all I felt was a cold, sharp clarity. This wasn't a home. It was a crime scene, and I was the only witness who mattered. I put the $50 in my pocket, turned my back on the woman who gave birth to me, and walked into the storm. Before I tell you how I spent that $50 to destroy her entire empire, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this justice travels. Most people have happy memories of their childhood home. I have receipts. For 5 years, I wasn't really a daughter to Andrea and Edward. I was an unpaid employee, a liability they kept hidden in the attic, and an accomplice to crimes I didn't even understand until it was too late. It started when I was 16. While other girls were worrying about prom dresses and driver's licenses, my father, Edward, was teaching me how to cook the books. He'd come into my room late at night, smelling of expensive scotch and fear, dropping a stack of invoices on my desk. "Fix this, Taylor," he'd say. "You're the smart one. Make the red numbers turn black." And I did. I was good with numbers. I found patterns where others saw chaos. I learned how to hide expenses, how to inflate assets, how to make a failing business look like a gold mine. I thought I was helping. I thought this was what families did. They protected each other. I didn't realize I was being groomed to be the fall guy for their greed. Downstairs, Andrea would throw elaborate parties. I could hear the music thumping through the floorboards, the clinking of crystal, the laughter of people who thought they were better than everyone else. I wasn't invited. I was the secret in the attic, the girl who didn't fit the aesthetic. Andrea would post photos on social media of her perfect life, featuring my cousin Victoria, the beautiful, obedient replacement she'd unofficially adopted into the spotlight. In the photos, Victoria was the daughter. In the tax filings, I was the signatory. They erased me from the family portraits, but they needed me for the family ledger. Looking back, I see the trap now. It's a specific kind of cruelty that you don't recognize when you're in it. You normalize it. You tell yourself that being useful is the same thing as being loved. You think that if you just work hard enough, if you just save them one more time, they'll finally look at you with pride instead of utility. It's a prison without bars, built on the desperate hope that your value as a human being might one day exceed your value as an accountant. They thought they were clever. They thought they were using me. They laughed at my clothes, mocked my lack of social life, and called me boring while I saved them from bankruptcy month after month. But they made a fatal miscalculation. By forcing me to learn every inch of their financial deceit, they weren't just getting free labor. They were handing me the blueprints to their destruction. They were teaching me exactly where the bodies were buried, because they forced me to dig the graves. I endured it for 5 years. I swallowed the insults. I accepted the invisibility. I signed the papers. But the night she threw that $50 bill in the mud was the night the accountant finally quit. I realized then that I wasn't working for my family. I was working for my enemies. And I knew exactly how to make them pay. I walked for 3 miles in the rain. My clothes were heavy, sticking to my skin like a second layer of shame. But my mind was burning hot. I didn't go to a friend's house. I didn't call a relative. I went to the only place open at 2 in the morning, a 24-hour diner on the edge of town called Heather's Place. The bell chimed as I pushed the door open. The warmth hit me first, smelling of old coffee and bacon grease. It was the best thing I'd ever smelled. Heather, the owner, was behind the counter wiping down a spill. She took one look at me soaking wet, clutching a $50 bill like a lifeline, and didn't ask a single question. She just pointed to the booth in the back corner and poured a mug of black coffee. "On the house," she said. sliding a plate of toast across the table. You look like you're planning a murder, or a miracle. Eat first. I drank the coffee. It scalded my tongue, and the pain felt good. It woke me up. I looked at the $50 sitting on the Formica table. Andrea thought this was my severance package. She thought this was the end of me. She didn't realize it was seed money. I pulled my laptop out of my backpack. It was the one thing I'd grabbed before they pushed me out the door. My father had bought it for me strictly for business purposes, so I could work on their taxes from my bedroom. He probably thought he was being smart, keeping his little accountant equipped. He forgot that a computer doesn't care who's typing on it. It just processes the data. I connected to the diner's Wi-Fi. I didn't open a job search site. I didn't look for apartments. I went straight to the website of the Internal Revenue Service. For years, I had been the keeper of their secrets. I knew about the shell company in the Cayman Islands. I knew about the consulting fees paid to non-existent employees. I knew exactly how much cash Andrea skimmed from the charity galas she hosted to pay for her wardrobe. They forced me to memorize the lies so I wouldn't make a mistake on the ledger. Now, I was going to use that memory to bury them. I pulled up Form 211. Application for Award for Original Information. It's a simple document. Really? Just a few boxes to check. A few lines to fill. But as I typed, it felt like I was loading a weapon. Name of taxpayer Andrea and Edward. Subject of investigation. Tax evasion. Money laundering. Fraud. I didn't need to look up the account numbers. I knew them better than I knew my own social security number. I typed them in. One by one. The offshore holdings. The hidden real estate. The fake losses. Every keystroke was a rejection of their control. Every number was a brick pulled out of their foundation. My hands didn't shake. I didn't feel guilty. I felt light. For the first time in 5 years. I wasn't the victim. I was the narrator. I was rewriting their story from a tragedy about a discarded daughter into a legal thriller about two criminals who underestimated the wrong person. I reviewed the form. It was perfect. Lethal. Irreversible. I hovered my finger over the submit button. I looked out the window at the rain, still pounding against the glass. Somewhere in Newport, Andrea was probably sleeping soundly in her silk sheets, dreaming of the parties she would throw now that I was gone. She had no idea that the storm outside was nothing compared to the one I was about to send to her front door. I clicked submit. The screen flashed a confirmation number. It was done. The bomb was planted. Now, all I had to do was wait for the explosion. 5 years. That's 1,825 days. Most people can't hold a grudge for 5 minutes. I held mine like a breathless prayer. I didn't leave Newport. I didn't run away to start over in some nameless city. I did something much colder. I moved across the street. Well, across the bay. To be exact. I bought the penthouse in the new ultra-modern high-rise downtown. My living room is a wall of floor-to-ceiling glass. If I stand at the window with my binoculars, I have a direct line of sight into the backyard of my parents' estate. I call it the Glass Fortress. Every morning, I drink my coffee and watch them. I watched Andrea tell the town I was a drug addict. That was her narrative. She needed a reason why her dutiful daughter vanished. So she invented a tragedy. She'd cry at charity luncheons, dabbing her dry eyes with a silk handkerchief, telling her friends how she tried everything to save me from the demons of addiction. She got sympathy. She got attention. She got to play the grieving mother of a living ghost. I let her talk. I never corrected the record. I never defended myself. I learned early on that when your enemy is digging a hole, you don't take away their shovel. You wait until they're deep enough that they can't climb out. While she was busy destroying my reputation, I was busy building my war chest. I didn't just become an accountant. I became a weapon. I started a boutique forensic accounting firm. My specialty, helping high-net-worth divorcees find the assets their husbands were hiding. I was good at it. I was ruthless. I turned the skills my father forced me to learn against men exactly like him. I made my first million by 23. My second by 24. By 26, I was wealthier than my parents ever were. Even before you counted the debt they were hiding. But I stayed invisible. I drove a nondescript car. I wore simple clothes. I stayed out of the society pages. I was a ghost with a bank account. haunting the edges of their perfect life. The waiting was the hardest part. The IRS doesn't move fast. They are a slow, grinding machine. For 5 years. I worked with my contact, a lawyer named Jason, who specializes in tax fraud. We fed them documents. We clarified discrepancies. We waited for the audit to turn into an investigation, and the investigation to turn into an indictment. Tonight, the waiting ends. Through my binoculars, I can see the lights blazing at the estate. Andrea is throwing her annual summer solstice gala. It's the biggest event of the season. There are white tents on the lawn, a string quartet playing near the fountain, and hundreds of guests drinking champagne that my parents bought with money they owe the government. Victoria, my replacement, is there, wearing a dress that costs more than a car, smiling that practiced. Empty smile. It's a beautiful party. It's the perfect stage. My phone buzzes on the marble counter. It's a single text message from Jason. No words. Just a photo of a document stamped with the seal of the United States District Court. Warrant for seizure of assets. Execution authorized immediate. I pick up my purse. I check my lipstick in the reflection of the glass. I look out at the party, one last time. They are dancing. They are laughing. They have no idea that the music is about to stop. I walk to the elevator. It's time to go to the party. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and entitlement. I handed my invitation to the security guard at the gate. He didn't recognize me. Why would he? I was just another guest in a sea of tuxedos and gowns. I walked up the driveway, gravel crunching under my heels, the sound hidden by the swell of violins. Andrea stood near the fountain, holding a glass of champagne, surrounded by a circle of admirers. She looked radiant. She was wearing a silver gown that I knew cost $6,000 because I'd seen the invoice 5 years ago. She'd bought it with business expense funds and hidden it under office renovation. Edward was by her side, laughing too loudly. His face flushed. Victoria was there too, showing off her engagement ring to a group of women who were judging its clarity. It was a perfect tableau of everything I hated. I moved to the edge of the crowd, near the catering tent. I watched. I waited. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the lawn. Andrea tapped a spoon against her glass. The crowd hushed. "Thank you all for coming," she said smoothly. "Tonight is about family, legacy, and the future." She raised her glass. "To the future. To the future." The crowd echoed. The floodlights snapped on. Harsh white beams cut through the twilight. The music died. A megaphone crackled. "This is the sheriff's department. Remain where you are." Glasses shattered. Guests froze as black SUVs rolled onto the lawn. Agents stepped out, yellow letters blazing on their backs. IRS. Edward and Andrea Vance. A voice announced, "We have a federal warrant for seizure of this property and all assets under Title 26. U.S. Code. Section 7201. Panic erupted. Edward went pale. Andrea trembled. "This is a mistake," she screamed. The agents ignored her, slapping orange seized stickers on statues, cars, doors. Edward stared at the ground. He had always known. I stepped into the light. The crowd parted. Andrea saw me. Confusion, recognition, rage. "You," she hissed. I smiled. The trap had sprung. As agents cataloged the house, Andrea scanned the crowd, desperate for a narrative shift. Her eyes locked on me. "Arrest her," she screamed. "She's my daughter. She stole my mother's Cartier ring. She's a drug addict. This is her fault." The crowd murmured. The sheriff glanced at me. "I have the ring," I said calmly. Andrea lit up. "See, I didn't steal it," I continued. "I bought it." I held up a yellow document. 5 years ago, you reported the ring stolen and collected insurance. But you pawned it yourself for $4,000. Her face drained of color. "This is the bill of sale," I said, handing it to the sheriff. "I worked at that pawn shop. I bought it back with my first paychecks." The crowd stared at her in horror. "She sells everything," I said quietly. "Her history, her daughter, her future." The lie collapsed. "Clear the premises," the sheriff announced. The property is seized. Edward protested weakly. The title has already transferred, the sheriff said. To the primary lien holder. Andrea whispered. Who? The sheriff looked at me. Step forward. I bought it, I said. Edward stared. You're nothing. I'm the whistleblower, I replied. 30% reward. You stole $3. $2 million. Do the math. Andrea collapsed. Please, she sobbed. We're family. I pulled out a $50 bill and pressed it into her hand. Take the bus, I said. It's exactly what you're worth. They walked away with nothing. Inside, the house felt empty, more museum than victory. I wasn't going to live there. When my lawyer asked what I wanted to do with it, I answered, I'm giving it to Heather. We'll turn it into a shelter for kids who get thrown away. I left without looking back. The storm was over. The ledger was balanced. And for the first time, I was free. If you believe family is about love, not blood, share this. And if you're still fighting for your freedom, keep going. Your $50 moment is coming.